The arrival, the stars shone like tiny diamonds as Jack's small ship cut through the black sky. He sat quietly in the pilot's seat, staring at the strange planet below. Its surface glowed with patches of red and blue light. Clouds of smoke rose. From the ground, like dark fingers reaching up, Jack was a soldier. He had been sent here because of a signal, a strange signal that no one could understand. It came from this planet, far away from Earth. At first, people thought it was a mistake, but the signal kept coming. It sounded like a voice, weak and broken, saying, "Help us, human, help." So they sent Jack. When his ship landed, the ground shook slightly. Dust flew around, and the air was hot and heavy. Jack opened the hatch and stepped out. He wore a strong armored suit and carried a large plasma rifle. The sky was dark, even though it wasn't night. Thick clouds blocked the light. The ground was cracked and burned, and strange twisted plants grew here and there. In the distance, Jack could hear strange sounds, cries, screams, and the loud clash of weapons. He walked slowly, scanning the area. Soon he came to what looked like a battlefield. Bodies lay everywhere. Not human bodies, but alien ones. Some were tall and blue-skinned, with shining armor and sharp claws. Others were black and insect-like, with long legs and hard shells. Machines, too, were broken and smoking. Big walking robots and flying drones lay scattered like toys. Moved carefully, checking for survivors. Then he heard it. A soft voice, weak but clear. "Human, over here." Jack turned and saw her. She was lying on the ground near a fallen pillar. A tall, graceful alien woman. She had silver skin that shimmered in the dim light and long black hair. Her clothes were torn, and blood ran from a wound on her shoulder. But even hurt, she looked proud and strong. Jack rushed to her side. "Don't move," he said. "I'll help you." She stared at him with glowing golden eyes. "You came," she whispered. "You answered the call," Jack nodded. "Who are you?" She gasped for breath. "Am the queen of this land. My people, my daughters, are dying. They came to destroy us. You must stop them." Jack looked around. More of the insect-like enemies were gathering at the far edge of the field. He could see their dark shapes moving, hundreds of them. "How many are there?" he asked. "Too many," the queen said. "But you are human. You are different. You can fight," Jack frowned. "I don't know what you think I can do alone." "You are brave," she said weakly. "That is enough." Jack stood up and lifted his rifle. The enemy was getting closer now. Their strange clicking sounds filled the air, and their glowing red eyes locked on him. He turned to the queen. "Can you walk?" "No," she said. "Leave me. Save yourself." Jack shook his head. "Not my style." He helped her sit against a pillar, then checked his rifle. There were only a few charges left. The enemy line stopped a few meters away. Then they began to spread out, surrounding him. Their leader, a huge black creature with horns, stepped forward and pointed a claw at Jack. The queen spoke again, her voice urgent. "If you fight for me, if you save my daughters, I will give you more than you dream of." Jack kept his eyes on the enemy. "I didn't come here for rewards," he said, "but I don't like bullies." The queen smiled faintly. "Then you are already worthy." Suddenly, the enemy leader let out a sharp cry, and all the creatures charged at once. Jack took a deep breath and raised his rifle. Blasts of blue light shot from his weapon, cutting through the first few enemies. He moved fast, shooting, kicking, dodging claws and teeth. One by one, the creatures fell, but more kept coming. Behind him, the queen watched in silence. Jack grabbed a fallen alien sword from the ground and swung it hard, slicing through another enemy. The fight was fierce. Jack's armor was scratched, his arms ached, but he didn't stop. Then suddenly, everything went quiet. Jack stood in the middle of the field, breathing hard. Dozens of enemy bodies lay around him. But he wasn't done. More shadows moved in the smoke, hundreds more. The queen looked up at him with golden eyes that glowed even brighter now. "You are not just a man," she said softly. "You are the savior we waited for." Jack stared at the approaching army and tightened his grip on the sword. "Let's see if I can live up to that," he muttered. The enemy leader raised his claws, and the next wave charged. Jack took one last look at the queen and stepped forward to meet them. The battle begins. The sky above the battlefield was painted with fire. Bright streaks of lightning flashed through the thick clouds, and distant mountains glowed red with eruptions. The air smelled of smoke, and ash. Jack stood with the alien sword in one hand and his plasma rifle in the other. Around him, the bodies of fallen enemies littered the ground. The queen, still leaning weakly against the broken pillar, stared at him with her golden eyes. But the fight was not over. From the shadows beyond the field, new enemies emerged. Hundreds of them, their black shells glinting in the faint light, their eyes glowing red. They moved as one, crawling, running, leaping across the rocks, their claws clicking against the ground. And at the front stood the enemy commander, a massive creature with twisted horns and a spiked tail. It raised its head and let out a deep, echoing roar that shook the air. Jack's hands tightened around his weapons. His heart was beating fast, but his mind was calm. He took a deep breath and stepped forward. The queen called out to him in her strange, soft voice, "You cannot fight them all. Not alone? Run, and I will forgive you." Jack glanced back at her, his eyes sharp. "Not my style," he said simply, and then he charged. The enemy commander's eyes widened for a moment, surprised, but then it roared again, and its army swarmed toward Jack. The ground seemed to shake under their weight. Jack fired his rifle first, cutting down a line of attackers with precise shots. Blue light burned through shells and claws, but the rifle's charge quickly ran out. He threw it aside, drew the alien sword with both hands, and kept moving forward. The sword glowed faintly in his hands, as if alive. He swung it through the air, and with each strike, enemies fell. Their black shells cracked, their bodies collapsed into dust. Jack didn't stop. He fought like a storm, moving fast, striking hard, blocking claws and dodging teeth. The enemy soldiers began to hesitate. They had never seen a human fight like this before, fearless, relentless. Some even backed away as he cut down more of their kind. The commander growled and pushed them forward, but cracks were appearing in their lines. Behind him, the queen slowly pulled herself up. She watched him with an expression he couldn't read, pride, perhaps, or wonder. And then a strange thing happened. Jack felt the sword in his hands grow warmer. It began to glow brighter, humming softly as if it had woken up. Each time he swung it, the blade left a trail of golden light in the air, and the enemies it struck seemed to vanish completely. Jack didn't understand, but he didn't stop. The queen gasped when she saw it. "He awakens it," she whispered to herself. For the first time, the commander looked uncertain. It stepped forward, towering over Jack, and raised its massive claws. Jack raised his sword and stared back. But just before they could clash, something unexpected happened. The ground beneath them split open with a deafening crack. Jack stumbled as the earth shook violently. From the fissure rose a thick black mist, and a giant shape began to emerge, something even larger than the commander. The queen's golden eyes widened in fear. "No," she whispered. "Not it?" Jack glanced back at her. "What is it?" he shouted, but she didn't answer. Her eyes stayed fixed on the mist. Out of the darkness rose a creature unlike anything Jack had ever seen. A monster of shadow, with wings made of smoke and a face hidden behind a mask of bone. It opened its mouth, and a horrible sound filled the air, not a roar, but a whisper that made Jack's skin crawl. All the enemy's soldiers stopped and fell to their knees. Even the commander lowered its head in front of the shadow creature. Jack stood alone now, staring at it. The queen's voice finally came, trembling. "The Ancient One," she said, "we are lost." Jack clenched his jaw and gripped his sword. Tighter. "Not yet," he said, but deep inside he felt a chill. This thing, this Ancient One, was no ordinary enemy. The shadow creature lifted its head and pointed at Jack. The air around him grew colder, and the light from the sword dimmed slightly. Then the queen spoke again, her voice louder now. "Human," she cried, "if you fall here, my people are finished. But if you stand, you may awaken all of it." Jack turned to her. "All of what?" he demanded. She looked at the glowing sword and whispered, "The power of kings." The Ancient One moved closer, its whispers filling Jack's ears. "Give up," it said softly. "You are alone. You cannot win." But Jack shook his head. "Not my style," he said again. He raised the sword high, and for a moment it shone brighter than before. The enemy commander rose to its feet again, snarling. The soldiers behind it hissed and prepared to attack. The Ancient One spread its smoky wings wide and let out another eerie whisper. Jack planted his feet firmly on the cracked ground. "Come on, then." He muttered dot, and as the entire enemy force began to rush at him, the commander, the soldiers, and even the Ancient One, Jack charged forward to meet them head-on. The queen watched silently, her hands clasped together, her golden eyes glowing brighter now. In her mind, she thought, if he survives this, he is truly the one. The battlefield exploded into chaos again, the sound of battle echoing through the dark sky. And somewhere deep in the mist, something else stirred, watching, waiting. The real test had only just begun. The gift is promised. The battlefield was quiet at last. A strange golden light spread over the ground, and the smoke began to fade. Broken weapons and shattered bodies of the enemies lay scattered all around. The commander was gone, defeated by Jack's blade, and the shadow creature, the Ancient One, had vanished back into the black mist with a horrible whisper, leaving behind only a crack in the earth that still glowed faintly. Jack stood in the center, his breathing heavy, his sword glowing faintly in his hand. The blade was warm now, almost alive, but he didn't understand why it had chosen to help him, or how he had even survived. The queen walked slowly toward him. Her wounds were healing, and her steps were strong again. Her golden eyes studied him with an expression that was no longer just respect. It was something deeper, awe, perhaps, and fear. She stopped in front of him and spoke softly. "You have done it," she said. "You have done what no other being in this galaxy could do. Even my strongest generals fell to the Ancient One. But you drove it back." Jack lowered his sword and stared at her. "What is that thing?" he asked. "And why does it care about me?" The queen looked away, her eyes distant. "That," she said, "was one of the ancient gods of war, a creature of shadow and hunger. Long before my time, my ancestors made a deal with it to win battles. But it always demands more. It always comes back." Jack's jaw tightened. "Then why are you still fighting? Why call me if you already have gods on your side?" At that, the queen turned back to him and smiled faintly. "Because we need it." "You?" she said. Jack frowned. "Me? Why?" The queen didn't answer right away. Instead, she raised her hand and made a signal. From the shadows of the ruined palace, Three tall figures emerged. At first, Jack thought they were more enemies. But then he saw their faces. They looked like the queen, but younger and different. Each of them carried herself with strength and pride, and each wore armor that shimmered faintly under the strange light. The first one stepped forward. She was tall and silent, her expression calm but cold. She carried two curved swords, and her golden eyes watched Jack closely, like a predator studying her prey. The second one was shorter but stronger looking, with a fiery look in her eyes and a spear in her hands. She smirked slightly, as if she already disliked him, but also couldn't wait to test him. The third was the smallest, with a sharp, cunning smile and a thin dagger at her side. Her movements were quick and quiet, and her eyes glimmered with mischief. "These," the queen said, her voice loud and proud now, "are my daughters." Jack looked at them warily. "Daughters?" he repeated. The queen nodded. "They are my blood, my fiercest warriors, my heirs. And now—" she paused and took a step closer to Jack. "They are yours." Jack blinked. "Mine?" he said. "What do you mean?" The queen's eyes narrowed. "You saved me," she said. "You saved my people. You defeated our enemies when no one else could. Our laws are clear. The savior of the queen earns the right to her daughters, as allies, as protectors, as—" she hesitated for just a moment. "Whatever you choose." Jack stared at three daughters. They stared back, each with a different kind of challenge in her eyes. The silent one tilted her head slightly, as if already judging his worth. The fiery one gripped her spear tighter, her smirk growing. And the cunning one simply smiled a little more, as though she already knew something he didn't. Jack shook his head slightly. "I didn't come here for rewards," he said. The queen smiled faintly. "And yet here they are," she said. But then her face grew serious. "However," she continued, "you must prove yourself worthy of them. My daughters do not follow just anyone. You must earn their loyalty, their respect, their trust. If you fail, they will leave you, or worse." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Or worse?" he asked. The fiery daughter finally spoke, her voice sharp and strong. "If you fail," she said, "we will end you." Jack met her gaze and smirked faintly. "Fair enough," he said. The queen clapped her hands, and the golden light grew brighter. The daughters circled around Jack now, each of them silent but watchful. "Your first test begins at dawn," the queen said. "Until then, rest. Tomorrow you enter the wild lands, and there you will face the beasts that even we cannot tame." Jack sheathed the glowing sword on his back. "Beasts, huh?" he said. "Sounds fun." The cunning daughter laughed softly, her voice like a whisper. "You won't be saying that tomorrow," she said. Then, all at once, the queen raised her hand, and a door of shimmering light appeared behind her. "You may sleep in the palace tonight," she said, "but tomorrow you are on your own." Jack looked at the queen, then at the three daughters. "Fine," he said. "I'll play your little game, but when this is over, I want answers. About everything. About that shadow creature. About this sword. About why me." The queen's faint smile returned, but her golden eyes gave nothing away. "All in time, human," she said softly. "All in time." Jack walked through the shimmering door into the palace, feeling the eyes of the daughters on his back the whole time. And somewhere deep in the palace halls, unseen by anyone, a pair of red eyes opened in the dark and watched him go. Tests of the daughters. Morning sky above the alien palace was painted in strange colors, deep green mixed with gold and streaks of violet. The air was thick, warm, and alive with faint whispers carried by the wind, as if the land itself was watching. Jack stood at the edge of the grand courtyard where the queen's daughters waited for him. Each of them wore different armor now. Darker, sharper, more dangerous. The silent one stood to his right, her two curved swords gleaming faintly. She didn't speak, but her cold eyes told him everything. She expected him to fail. The fiery one stood in front of him, spinning her spear in one hand, her smirk even wider today. "You survived one night," she said. "Let's see if you can survive the jungle." The cunning one leaned lazily against a pillar, her dagger playing between her fingers. Her smile was calm but sharp, and her eyes glittered with secrets. The queen stood on a high balcony above them, her golden gaze fixed on Jack. "Today," she said loudly, "you will earn what you have claimed, or you will die trying." Jack glanced at the daughters. "Sounds like a fun family trip." He muttered. None of them laughed. The queen raised her hand, and a huge gate creaked open behind them, revealing a path that led into the wild lands. Beyond the gate, the ground was covered in thick vines, glowing plants, and massive black trees that stretched into a strange fog. "This jungle," the queen continued, "is home to creatures older than my kingdom. Even my best hunters do not return. If you wish to lead my daughters, you must show them you can conquer what even they fear." Jack cracked his knuckles, adjusted the glowing sword on his back, and stepped toward the gate. "Let's get it over with," he said. The fiery daughter snorted. "You'll regret saying that," she said, then followed him through the gate. Silent and cunning daughters moved behind them. Without a word, the jungle swallowed them almost immediately. The air inside was heavy and damp, and the trees grew so close together that little light made it through. Strange shapes moved in the air. Shadows, some fast, some slow. The ground itself seemed alive, shifting slightly under Jack's boots. "This place is charming," Jack muttered. "Shut up and watch your step," the fiery daughter snapped. They walked deeper, and the silence grew heavier. Than it began. First test came quickly. A sudden roar shook the jungle, and a massive creature burst through the trees. It was shaped like a lion, but covered in black scales, with 4 glowing eyes and a tail tipped with spikes. Jack barely raised his sword before it pounced. The fiery daughter shouted, "Let's see how you handle this, human." Jack rolled to the side, swung his sword, and cut into the creature's shoulder. It shrieked and lashed its tail, narrowly missing him. The silent daughter moved in without a word, slashing at its legs with her curved swords, while the fiery one stabbed it with her spear. But the creature's skin was thick, and it didn't fall easily. Jack climbed onto its back, drove the sword deep into its neck, and finally brought it crashing to the ground. The fiery daughter raised an eyebrow. "Not bad," she admitted, but the silent one only turned and walked on, clearly unimpressed. The second test came hours later. When they reached a dark river. The cunning daughter stopped and smirked. "This one is for you," she said softly, before Jack could ask what she meant. The water rippled, and dozens of thin, snake-like creatures slithered out, each with glowing blue fangs. Jack raised his sword, but the cunning daughter grabbed his arm. "Use your head," she whispered. "Not just your blade." Jack frowned. He studied the creatures and noticed they always avoided certain glowing stones near the riverbank. "Light," he murmured. He broke a glowing branch from a nearby tree and thrust it at the snakes. They hissed and backed away, slipping back into the river. The cunning daughter smiled faintly. "Maybe you're not completely useless," she said. Jack shook his head and muttered, "Thanks for the encouragement." But the jungle wasn't done testing him. As they moved deeper, the air grew colder, and the fog thickened. Then the silent daughter stopped abruptly and pointed. Jack followed her gaze. Ahead was a clearing where strange stones were arranged in a circle, and in the center stood a dark figure. It was humanoid, but made entirely of shadow, its face hidden, its hands long and sharp. The air around it was icy, and even the fiery daughter hesitated. "That," she said quietly, is the wraith. Even we do not fight it. The queen's voice echoed faintly in Jack's mind. You must conquer what even they fear. Jack took a deep breath and stepped into the clearing. The wraith moved fast, gliding over the ground, striking with its claws. Jack barely blocked the first blow, and even then, it sent a chill through his body. The daughters watched in silence, their expressions unreadable. Jack gritted his teeth, forced himself to move faster, and struck back. His glowing sword clashed with the wraith's claws, sending sparks into the fog. But it didn't stop. The wraith's whisper filled his head. You are weak. You do not belong. Jack's vision blurred, but he kept fighting, pushing back the darkness, striking again and again until finally, with one last, desperate swing, he cut through the wraith's chest. The creature let out a hollow scream and dissolved into smoke. The silence that followed was heavy. The silent daughter finally spoke, her voice soft but clear. You may not be completely worthless, she said. The fiery daughter scoffed, but nodded. And the cunning daughter simply smiled. Her sharp little smile. As they left the clearing, Jack felt something shift in the air, as though the jungle itself had accepted him. But behind them, in the fog, two glowing red eyes opened, watching him, waiting, and somewhere far away, the queen stood on her balcony, smiling faintly. Good, she whispered to herself. Let the true test begin. The deadly secret, the jungle, was behind them now. Jack and the daughters emerged into a rocky valley under a black sky where strange stars shimmered faintly. The air here was colder and the silence heavier. Even the queen's daughters, who never showed fear, walked more carefully, their weapons always in their hands. Jack glanced at them as they climbed the narrow path through the cliffs. The silent daughter walked in front, her two blades ready, her cold eyes scanning every shadow. The fiery one stayed close behind Jack, her spear resting on her shoulder, her smirk gone now, replaced with something sharper. Suspicion. And the cunning daughter. Jack noticed she wasn't there. He stopped suddenly and turned around. Where's the little one? He asked. The fiery daughter spun around too, her golden eyes narrowing. She was right behind us, she said, but the silent one didn't turn or speak. She just kept walking forward as though she already knew. Jack frowned. She's fast, he said, but not that fast. The fiery daughter shook her head. She doesn't move unless she has a reason. And then Jack saw it. On the ground, between two stones, a small piece of torn fabric. The cunning daughter's sash. Jack knelt, picked it up, and turned it over. There was blood on it. The fiery daughter cursed under her breath. She ran, she said. Jack stood up slowly. She ran where? He asked. But even as he spoke, he felt it, a faint vibration under his feet. The rocks ahead glowed faintly. Red. The air grew heavier, colder. The silent daughter finally stopped at the top of the path and pointed ahead. Below them lay a hidden valley, a camp of the enemy. Hundreds of black-shelled soldiers moved silently through the shadows, and at the center stood the Ancient One's black mist, swirling above a throne of bones. And there, kneeling before the throne, was the cunning daughter. Jack's breath caught. She was speaking to the shadow creature. The fiery daughter hissed between her teeth. That traitor, she spat. Jack narrowed his eyes. No, he said slowly. She's smart. Too smart to just betray you like this without a reason. The fiery daughter glared at him. She's a snake, she said. We should kill her now before she guts you in your sleep. Jack ignored her. He watched the cunning daughter bow her head to the Ancient One, then slowly stand and hand over a small glowing shard, something she must have taken from the queen's palace. The shadow creature's whispers drifted up to them. Welcome, little daughter, it said. You choose wisely. Leave the weak human. Serve me, and I will give you what she never could." Jack clenched his fists. The fiery daughter stepped forward, her spear raised. "I'll finish this," she said, but Jack grabbed her arm. "Wait," he said. The silent daughter finally spoke, her first words since the jungle. "She knows more than we do," she said softly. "If you kill her now, we lose the truth." The fiery daughter snorted, but lowered her weapon. Jack nodded. "I'll bring her back," he said. The fiery daughter smirked faintly. "Alive?" she asked. Jack didn't answer. The descent into the enemy camp was dangerous. Jack moved quickly, but silently, slipping between rocks and shadows. The black-shelled soldiers didn't notice him at first. His blade hummed softly at his side, but he didn't draw it yet. At the edge of the throne, he stopped and watched. The cunning daughter stood before the Ancient One now, her head still bowed. "I have done as you asked," she said in a soft, steady voice. "Now give me what you promised." The shadow creature leaned closer, its whispers like a storm. "Soon," it said, "but first, kill the human." Jack stepped out of the shadows then, his voice calm but cold. "Don't listen to it," he called. The cunning daughter froze. Slowly, she turned and looked at him. Her golden eyes glowed faintly, but there was something else in them. Pain. "Jack," she said softly, "you shouldn't have come here." "I had to," he said, tightened her grip on the dagger at her side. "You don't understand," she said. "If I don't do this, it will destroy everything. It will kill her, the queen, my sisters, everyone." Jack took a step closer. "Then tell me the truth," he said. "What does it want?" The cunning daughter's eyes flickered toward the Ancient One. "It wants you," she whispered. Jack raised an eyebrow. "Me?" he asked. The shadow creature spoke then, its voice louder now, filling the valley. "You are the chosen," it hissed. "The blade you carry belongs to me. Return it and live, or keep it and watch them all die." Jack stared at the creature, then at the cunning daughter. "I didn't come here to bargain," he said. The cunning daughter's grip on her dagger tightened. "You don't understand," she said again. "If I kill you now, it will let them go." She took a step toward him, her blade raised. Jack stood his ground. "If that's what you really believe," he said, "then do it. But look me in the eye when you try." The cunning daughter hesitated. Her eyes darted between Jack and the shadow creature. For a moment, the whole valley seemed to hold its breath. Then, in one sudden motion, she spun around and threw her dagger at the throne, striking the creature's mask. The Ancient One let out a horrible scream, its body writhing as the black mist erupted in every direction. Jack didn't waste a second. He drew his glowing sword and leapt forward, cutting through the shadows, forcing the creature back. The cunning daughter ran to his side, her eyes fierce now. "I bought us time," she said. "That's all I could do." Jack glanced at her. "Then let's make it count," he said. Together, they cut their way out of the camp, fighting through waves of soldiers, the Ancient One's whispers chasing them through the dark. By the time they reached the safety of the cliffs again, the fiery and silent daughters were waiting, weapons ready. The fiery one glared at her sister. "You'd better have a damn good reason for this," she growled. The cunning daughter met her gaze calmly. "I do," she said. Jack stood between them, breathing hard, his sword still glowing. "She's hiding something," he said. "But whatever it is, it's not simple betrayal. There's more to this." Behind them, in the valley below, the Ancient One's screams still echoed in the darkness, and far above, on her balcony, the queen watched silently, her golden eyes glowing brighter than ever. "Good," she whispered to herself. "Now the real game begins." The final war the valley below burned. From the high cliffs, Jack stood with the three daughters, watching black flames spread through the enemy camp. Shadows twisted and writhed, filling the sky with dark smoke. The Ancient One was not dead. Wounded, yes. But its whispers still echoed in the air, deeper and colder than before. "You cannot stop me," it hissed faintly, though its body was nowhere to be seen. "You delay the inevitable. When I rise again, you will kneel." "Or burn," Jack gripped, the glowing sword tighter, feeling its strange warmth in his hand. Beside him, the silent daughter checked the edges of her curved blades, her expression unchanged. The fiery daughter paced back and forth, her golden eyes full of fury. And the cunning daughter, quiet now, leaned against the rocks, her dagger still stained with black mist. She did not meet anyone's eyes. The queen's voice rang out, suddenly carried on the wind. "Return to the palace," she commanded from afar. "The time has come to end this." When they arrived, the queen was waiting in the grand hall. The air was tense, and the ground itself seemed to hum with energy. Strange runes glowed on the walls, and the pillars shook faintly, as if the palace itself could feel the coming storm. The queen stood at the center of a circle of light, wearing armor of gold and black, her golden eyes blazing brighter than ever. "You have done well," she said. Jack stepped forward. "Well enough to earn some answers?" he asked coldly. The queen tilted her head, amused. "You already know the answers," she said. "You just haven't accepted them yet." Jack frowned. "I know your people made a deal with that thing," he said. "And I know you called me because you couldn't fight it alone. What I don't know is why me? Why did it want me? Why does this sword glow in my hand? What am I supposed to be?" The queen's gaze softened for a moment, but then she straightened and spoke clearly. "You are the heir," she said. Jack froze. "The heir to what?" he demanded. The queen walked toward him slowly. "This blade," she said, lightly touching. The sword at his side was not forged by my people. It was forged by the first human who came to our world thousands of years ago. A human who bound the Ancient One in chains of light and carved peace from the jaws of war. He was called the King of Two Worlds. Jack stared at her in silence. "And now," the queen said, "the Ancient One is free again. The last of the king's blood has returned, and the blade remembers." Jack looked down at the sword in his hand. "So you brought me here to finish what he started," he said. The queen nodded. "And to claim what is yours," she said. But before Jack could answer, the palace shook violently. The ground split with a deafening crack, and the air filled with black mist. The Ancient One's voice thundered through the hall. "I am risen," it roared. "And this time, there will be nitrogen monoxide peace." The daughters leapt to Jack's side, weapons drawn. The queen raised her hand, and golden light flared around them. The mist coiled into a massive shape, its wings blotting out the sky above the open roof. Its mask of bone cracked, revealing countless glowing eyes beneath. "You cannot defeat me," it hissed. Jack stepped forward, raising the sword. "Not my style," he muttered. The queen's daughters moved with him, the silent one at his right, the fiery one at his left, the cunning one behind him. The queen herself began chanting in a language Jack didn't know, her voice strong and full of power. The runes on the walls blazed brighter. The Ancient One struck first, sending a wave of black fire through the hall. Jack raised his blade, and a shield of golden light burst forth, protecting them. The silent daughter moved in, slashing at the creature's legs, while the fiery one hurled her spear. Pinning one of its wings to the ground, Jack leapt into the air and drove the blade into its chest. The creature screamed, the palace shaking around them. But then, with a sickening crack, it tore itself free and struck back, hurling Jack across the hall. He hit the wall hard and slid to the floor. The Ancient One loomed over him now, whispering in his mind. "You are not enough," it hissed. You cannot finish what he started. You are not a king, just a soldier. Jack's hands shook as he tried to stand, but then he heard another voice, softer, stronger, got the queen. You are more than a soldier, she said. You are our savior, our heir, our king. Stand and claim it. Jack's sword flared so bright it hurt to look at. He rose slowly, his eyes full of fire now, and charged again. What happened next would be told in whispers for centuries. Jack fought like no human or alien had ever fought. His blade cut through the Ancient One's wings, its claws, its mask, until it fell back, howling, its black mist burning away under the golden light. The daughters fought beside him, their weapons flashing, their movements perfectly in sync with his. The queen's spell sealed the cracks in the ground, and the palace shook as the Ancient One was forced back into the abyss from which it had come. With one final strike, Jack drove the blade into its heart. The world went quiet. The mist vanished. The Ancient One was gone. Jack stood in the center of the ruined hall, breathing hard, the sword still glowing faintly in his hand. The queen walked toward him, her golden eyes soft now. You have done it, she said. Jack didn't speak. He just stared at her, still catching his breath. The fiery daughter finally smirked and said, Maybe you're not completely useless after all. The silent daughter gave the faintest nod of approval. And the cunning daughter, after a long pause, smiled her sharp little smile again and said, The throne suits you. Jack shook his head. I didn't come here for a throne, he sighed. The queen smiled faintly. Perhaps not, she said. But it seems the throne came for you. From the shadows, unseen by the others, two faint red eyes opened again. Watching. Waiting. Because some wars never truly end. The truth and the choice. The palace was silent now. A great hall still bore scars from the battle, cracked stones, blackened walls, and faint wisps of smoke curling up to the broken roof. In the center stood Jack, the glowing sword still in his hand. Around him lay the remnants of the Ancient One's mist, slowly fading into nothing. The queen approached him slowly. She was no longer wearing her armor, but a flowing robe of gold and black. Her daughters followed behind her, silent, fiery, cunning, each of them watching, Jack with different eyes now. The queen stopped just a few steps away and spoke softly. You have done what even my ancestors could not, she said. You drove the Ancient One back into the abyss. You freed us. Jack wiped blood from his cheek, breathing hard. Then it's over, he said. The queen tilted her head slightly, her golden eyes narrowing. Is it? She asked. Jack frowned. What does that mean? The queen gestured to the sword in his hand. You still hold it, she said. It still glows for you. That means your task is not yet done. Jack glanced down at the blade. A faint golden light still pulsed along its edge, as though it were alive. Before he could reply, the silent daughter stepped forward. You felt it too, she said softly. Jack looked at her. What did I feel? He asked. She raised her blades and crossed them over her chest. You felt the chains break, she said. Jack's stomach sank. The chains? The fiery daughter smirked bitterly. The Ancient One wasn't trying to win, she said. It was trying to distract you long enough to finish breaking free. Jack stared at them all, then at the queen. You knew, he said quietly. The queen didn't deny it. Yes, she admitted. I knew. But I also knew you were the only one who could stop it. Jack stepped closer, his voice sharper now. Used me, he said. The queen met his gaze without flinching. I guided you, she corrected. I gave you the choice to fight, and you did. The cunning daughter finally spoke, her voice quiet but cutting. And now, she said, you have another choice to make. Jack looked at her. What choice? The queen raised her hands. and the air around them shimmered. The golden light of the sword flared brighter, and the ground beneath them shifted. Suddenly, they were no longer in the palace. They stood on the edge of a vast chasm, black and endless, stretching as far as Jack could see. From deep within came faint whispers and glowing red eyes, countless red eyes, watching him. "This," the queen said, her voice echoing strangely, "is the heart of the abyss, the place where the Ancient One was chained." Jack took a step forward and peered down. "It doesn't look chained now," he muttered. The queen nodded. "The chains are broken," she said, "but they can be reforged by you." Jack looked at her sharply. "How?" She pointed to the sword. "That blade," she said, "was forged not just to fight the Ancient One, but to bind it, to seal it away forever. But to do so," she hesitated, "you must give yourself to it, completely. Your strength, your life, your soul. You will become its prison." Jack stared at her in silence. The fiery daughter spoke then, her voice uncharacteristically quiet. "If you do it," she said, "the Ancient One can never rise again. But you will never return." The silent daughter added, "If you refuse, it will rise fully, and nothing will stop it next time." Jack looked at the cunning daughter, who simply smiled faintly. "Every king makes a choice," she said. "Power or peace, yourself or the world." Jack turned the sword in his hands, feeling its warmth. He thought of the battles he had fought, of the queen's golden eyes, of the daughters who stood beside him even when they doubted him. He took a deep breath. "What happens if I just walk away?" he asked. The queen's voice was soft now. "Then the darkness spreads," she said. "My people fall, your people fall. Everything you fought for burns." Jack closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them, his jaw set. "You really don't make this easy, do you?" he muttered. The queen smiled faintly. "You were never meant to have an easy choice," she said. Jack stepped to the edge of the chasm. The whispers rose louder now, calling his name. He turned to the daughters one last time. The silent one gave a single, solemn nod. The fiery one smirked sadly. And the cunning one whispered, "You were always more than you knew." Jack looked at the queen. "Take care of them," he said simply. The queen bowed her head. "You have my word," she said. Jack raised the sword high. Golden light burst from its blade, blinding and fierce. Then, without another word, he plunged the sword into the heart of the abyss. The ground shook violently, and the chasm glowed as chains of light wrapped around the darkness below. The whispers turned into screams, then silence. When the light faded, the abyss was sealed, but Jack was gone. The queen and her daughters stood at the edge for a long time, staring at the now quiet chasm. Finally, the queen spoke. "He chose peace," she said softly. The fiery daughter crossed her arms and muttered, "Stubborn human." The silent daughter closed her eyes and whispered, "A king." The cunning daughter just smiled faintly and said, "Not bad for a soldier." Far above, the stars burned brighter than ever, and somewhere in the quiet of the sealed abyss, Jack's voice echoed faintly, "Not my style. The end."